I'm going to get started. I'm just going to say a few words. So first off, I'd like to thank you, Jerome, for joining us today. We appreciate it so much. Thank you for Margaret for working with me on this series of lectures and exhibitions and craziness at this pivoting this summer. I also want to do a shout out to the Dean Hall and the School of the Arts and Communications for helping make this happen. And then I think that's everybody I have to say thank you to. And then I want to say, so this is a series of lectures, events, and exhibitions through the gallery that, due to COVID and the last minute sort of change and pivoting, gave us the opportunity to really think about what our students needed and wanted. And what the students need and want is to understand how to take their designs and their art and the things that matter to them and make it worthwhile in the greater culture. So that's where Jerome comes in, because that's exactly what he does. So with that, I'm going to let Jason introduce, and I'm going to blank my screen out. Thank you.
Thank you, Belinda. So I'm Jason Alejandro, Assistant Professor of Graphic Design at the College of New Jersey. Thank you all for being here. Today I'm really excited to have Jerome Harris with us. I'll read a little bit about I'll read his bio and then welcome him to present after that. So Jerome Harris is a graphic designer, educator, and curator. His research on 20th century African-American graphic designers has grown into a touring exhibition with his next stop at Boston University this fall. Jerome takes on select freelance clients, freelance projects focusing on arts, culture, advocacy, and community. I happen to just be a big fan of his design work. Jerome holds an MFA in graphic design from Yale and a BA from Temple. He's currently the design director at Civic Nation. He's also previously worked at Housing Works and taught at MICA. So without further ado, Jerome, you can take it away.
All right, cool. Let me share. All right. I'm gonna press play on this. Let me know if the slides are working. Are the slides advancing? Okay. Sometimes when I go full screen on Keynote, they don't advance. Okay. Hello, everybody. I'm Jerome Harris. Jason did a great job introducing me. I'm gonna redo my bio a little bit, just with a little more detail. I was born and raised in New Haven, Connecticut. I went to Temple University in Philadelphia. I moved to New York. I was a professional dancer for like 3 years. The one thing I can brag about is that I danced in Step Up 3D, the movie. You might not see me because I was just a dancer in the cast, but if you watch the credits, my name is in there. And then I moved back to Philly. I was a teaching artist, teaching dance in the public school system, and decided to switch gears to do graphic design. That whole time I had been doing graphic design freelance, mostly like party flyers for nightlife. And I applied to grad school I applied to Yale and RISD. I did not get into RISD, but I got to Yale. Went through their 3-year program, the preliminary year, which is just the first year is just like graphic design boot camp, because I was completely self-taught up until that point. And then through the MFA program, which was stressful and it was everything. It was like a bad relationship and good relationship. It was crazy. Anyway, I went on to take on a teaching fellowship at Maryland Institute College of Art in Baltimore, was there for 2 years, moved back to New York. I took a job at Housing Works. I was the design director there for a year until COVID-19. And then I decided to leave New York because my life there was so based in social interaction. I couldn't do it anymore. So I'm now in Richmond, Virginia, because rent is cheap and I can have more space for less money. And I have friends at VCU. Yeah, so let's keep going. So in addition to graphic design, I kind of do dance on the side. I have an Instagram account called 32 Counts, where I teach people, 32 counts is just 4 counts of 8. So I just teach people short pieces of choreography. This used to happen in person before COVID-19, but now it's become a accidental graphic design project where I send people the choreography and then I edit 2 or 3 or 4 videos together. And more recently, I've actually put 16 videos together, so it looks really cool to see people in their domestic spaces doing choreography all at the same time. Um, I also DJ. I used to DJ. Now I just kind of do mixes and put them on SoundCloud. My DJ name is DJ Glenn Coco, and there's a if you know the reference, you know the reference. And yeah, and then this is just some work from Housing Works, and let's keep going. Okay, so talking about my exhibition As Not For, which is in short just a survey of 20th century African American graphic designers. I did it because for a couple of reasons. This is just a list that I made of kind of all of the I guess like moments in graphic design history that are talked about in popular graphic design books, and this is not complete. This is just like a lot like names that a lot of design educators know. There's nobody Black in here at all, or not white anyway. Maybe I think who is it in Fluxus? I think what's her name was in Fluxus. I can't think of her name right now. And Tadanori Yoko is in there too, but other than that, it's all white people. So, so this is basically just the kind of my problem statement. There's a severe underrepresentation of African American graphic design theories, methodologies, aesthetics, and practitioners in the field as a whole, and that's just my own words. And then I think I have not surprised there. And then this is just data from the 2019 Google AIGA and Google Design Census. Just 3% of the industry is identifies as Black. And this doesn't count people who are probably self-taught or probably working outside of traditional fields, so like outside of advertising or outside of studios, maybe designing party flyers like I was before. So maybe this number could be bigger, but also those people don't get included in these numbers. So just a thing to say. This is a quote from Cheryl D. Miller, who's been, I think she's releasing a book soon. Black graphic designer. This is a piece she wrote in 1987. She's written, this is a trio, there's a trio of pieces that she wrote. This is Black designers missing in action, and there's Black designers still missing in action. And then there's Black designers found in action, which is the most recent one. But anyway, in 1987, she was questioning this as well. What is missing in the design profession as a result of so little input from the largest of all American minority groups, which now in 2020, African Americans are no longer the largest. So I started the research. So when I was in grad school, I had to do a design history project, and I started with Buddy Esquire. Buddy Esquire designed these handbills, and if you go to Cornell University's hip hop archive, they're all free on there. You can just browse them. There's hundreds of them. But he designed these like letter-sized party flyers, which were amazing. Funny enough, like if you think about the time that he was making these, there was this whole postmodernist movement with April Greiman, and he was totally mashing up these cool, mashing up different art movements and different formal properties, taking Art Deco architecture, bringing in influence from manga, influences from graffiti. So you have all these different things happening, which was totally a characteristic of postmodernism, and he most likely had no idea this was happening in the Bronx. And he passed away 2014. And then I started looking other places just for like things that look for design that Black people had been involved with. So I was looking at just like Black Greek fraternity and sororities. They have these awesome like seals and logos, and they have like kind of a brand identity system that defines each one, like colors, kind of mascots, if you will, and a whole like lexicon of symbols. But I couldn't find out much about them because they're secret society. So who could I talk to about that? I moved on to looking at the Harlem Renaissance. I found work by Aaron Douglas, who I actually left out of the show because Aaron Douglas was more of an illustrator than a graphic designer. Aaron Douglas designed the Fire book cover here on the left, and I would suggest go checking out his work. Amazing work. And then the other artist is Winold Rice, he was a German painter who was interested in documenting subculture in the United States, and he was a huge supporter of the Harlem Renaissance, but he was a white man, so I also couldn't include him. I was also looking at the Negro baseball leagues, and this is just in my search for something, right? I'm just like, rummaging in the dark for something as I was doing my research. I was looking at these things, and I couldn't find out who designed them at all. There's no, if you guys know, then let me know, but these logos are really nice, and you think about their uniforms as well, and you think about signage at the stadiums and things like this. Like, somebody was making these things. I never found out who it was. I was looking at Afrofuturism, kind of like Parliament, and just all this album artwork from the 70s, and I couldn't figure out who designed these things either. Africa Bambaataa, had no idea who made these things. And then again, coming back to Buddy Esquire, thank God, Cornell had this huge archive. This is kind of my starting point, and then I was looking at clothes that I wore as a kid in the 90s. So I'm looking at all these Black fashion labels, but I couldn't find out who designed these brand identities either. And then I kind of got desperate and was just looking at artists that worked with type. So this is just a long list of fine artists that worked with type, and I was just kind of gonna force them into the show as graphic designers. I ended up not doing that because I wanted it to be true to the canon of design history. So at the end of the day, I ended up finding kind of the names and fragments of information about 36 people, which are listed here, but I could only find work and archives on 14 people. So it went from this, right? All of these people, this would have been an amazing show. I also don't think I could have done it because this would have been a lot of work. But 14 is manageable, right? So whatever. And then I added Sun Ra in there because when I went to University of Chicago, I was looking for work by Sylvia Abernathy, actually, who's in the show, the only woman in the show, which we'll talk about later. And I saw that Sun Ra had an archive there, so I'm looking through his stuff, and there was a book in there called The Unmeasurable Equation, and he was the author of it, so I just assumed that he designed it, so it's speculative, but I just included him in the show anyway. And also the work that I show in there are just poems that look like they were typeset with a typewriter, so I'm just calling him a graphic designer. So then there's the show. This was also just from a personal graphic design standpoint. This is the first time I ever had to was able to be my own client and make something and not care what anybody else thought. I would suggest, I don't know who's watching, but I would suggest everybody try this. Just like go make something and don't ask anybody's opinion. So like really just like figure it out. Because when I put this out there, people really responded to it. I get a lot of like freelance offers for people to like make stuff look like this. And I'm like, I don't want to do that. Like, this is something that is specific to this project, right? And as a designer, you'd make the work that suits the project. So The show is, as I said, an incomplete historical survey of work created by African American graphic designers between 1865 and 1999. I think it was important for me to start around the Emancipation Proclamation because history before before the abolition of slavery is complicated. So it's I guess start from freedom and move forward, or freedom. And then these are just some kind of post-rationalized goals, because when I was thinking of the show, it was more of a selfish searching for representation. I didn't care about sharing the information. I just wanted validation, because I was always the only Black person in the room all the time, and if it wasn't going to happen in the room, it was going to happen at least in my mind, or I could feel like I had a history and a trajectory to reach back to. I just wanted to feel validated that what I was doing was right, because I'm learning about all these white men in a room full of white people all the time. And a lot of white men and a couple of white women. Yeah. So, so these are just kind of these were the archives that I ended up looking at. So I was University of Illinois Chicago campus, University of Chicago, University of Houston. They have the Pen and Pixel archive. I would suggest looking at that. It's amazing. That's all the Cash Money stuff, Master P, Snoop Dogg artwork. Cornell University, Cooper Hewitt, Archives of American Art have a lot of Art Sims work. So that's a lot of, what's his name? Spike Lee's movie posters by Art Sims. The Library of Congress has a bunch of stuff. That's where all the W.B. Du Bois infographics came from. Delmark Records is where I got Sylvia Abernathy's album artwork. I just called them and asked them if I could use it, and they just gave me permission over the phone. They were like, "We don't care." So I just went ahead with that. Def Jam Records. I'm saying Def Jam Records, but I went to visit Say Adams, and he handed me the stuff. Like, he was like, "Here, put this in your show." I was like, "Oh, okay, thank you." I didn't. That's another amazing part that I'll talk about later. And then I found some like really weird like super pro-Black websites and blogs that were horribly designed, but had like PDFs on PDFs of the Black Panther newspapers, just scans, and that was awesome. I don't know who to ask for permission for that, but I used them. And of course, Wikipedia. All right. So the title of the show is a little misleading sometimes, so I'm just gonna try to explain where it came from. I was just I had no idea what to call the show, so I was just reading about Black people making art. So I was reading work by Fred Moten, and then I was also reading Alan Locke, who's a philosopher during the Harlem Renaissance, and this is from The New Negro, his book about how Black designers should carry themselves in the world and what kind of work they should make. And so this is just a quote from the book. It says, "Our poets have now stopped speaking for the Negro; they now speak as Negroes," and that's kind of the title is kind of a paraphrase version of this. So it's kind of a call for authenticity and not a performance of Blackness. It's not making it palatable to white people in particular, but it's just doing the thing that you do, and just letting it be what it's going to be. And then this is just from the same paragraph. It's just where he kind of expands on that last line, where formerly they spoke to others and tried to interpret, they now speak to their own and try to express. So just like a call for authenticity and not trying too hard, right? Like just doing it the thing exactly the way it should be done. I'm not going to read this. And also, every time I show people this quote, they're like, "What did I just read?" I think the reason why I found this important is because he's kind of saying, when you kind of think of something in absolutes, it does you a disservice. So you have to be flexible, but also understand all the consequences in the context of the way that you think about a thing. You have to think about it. You have to think about the whole context in which the way that you're thinking, so that you can make good decisions. I don't know. It's hard to explain. I'm not a philosopher. I'm a graphic designer. So these are just some social media graphics. I came up with this kind of language of scribbling because I felt like it felt urgent. Also, it felt like the handwriting for me was a gesture that I ended up using because it felt like it felt like how I felt when I was looking through, the Black Greek sororities, just looking for information. Like I feel like handwriting looks like seeking visually in a way. So just a subtle metaphor to my process. And then it's a little bit of archival imagery. So it's like Buddy Esquire, and then like Emmett McVeigh here, but then I have Jackie's back and Sparkle there, but it's kind of that's like inside jokes into Black popular culture, because Jackie's back is kind of the as, and Sparkle is kind of the for, because it was not made by Black people. It was a Blaxploitation movie, where Jackie's Back was a movie that was parodying Blaxploitation movies made by Robert Townsend. So there's a lot of that in the poster, a lot of small gestures to Black popular culture as well, which I totally reference meme culture, in that way. I'll subtly bring it in. So there's the poster. And there were a few specific references that I looked at. There was this condition report by Glenn Ligon, and he kind of points out the flaws, and I'm sorry for the pixelated image, but he points out the flaws in this protest sign, the I'm a Man work. Musicians do this, when they go to fix a piece of art, they're like, oh, there's dust here, there's scratches here, but he's treating this thing that's usually not so precious, a protest sign, in a way that's a fine piece of fine art. And then of course, like Basquiat, like definitely his the way that he approached work, your eyes jumping around, like compositionally, and just the use of handwriting is just, I don't know, just very compelling for me in his work. And I just wanted to just give a nod to him. And I also use Caslon because it has an ironic history. It's a British typeface, and when the founding fathers decided to letterpress the Declaration of Independence, they used Caslon while also claiming their independence from Britain, which is, bad decision. And also, it wasn't everybody's independence either, because they had slaves while they were doing this. So it's just a big contradiction in the document and choice of font. So this is just details of the poster. And again, there's like Richard Pryor from The Wiz. So it's like his Wiz machine is crossed out, but him as himself, this little coward, comes out from behind the machine, and that's his as and not for. And so the show is broken up into 4 sections: parties and protests, advertising and commerce, Black data, and musicality. So parties and protests was the party flyers, in addition to the Black Panther newspaper spreads, which I don't have a photo of here. And these are photos from the first show at MICA. This was a part of my fellowship, and this show kind of took off from there. Advertising and commerce was just images made to sell things. Black data was W.E.B. Du Bois's infographics that he made with his students at Atlanta University, which depicted the condition of African Americans in the early 20th century. And these are all free on the Library of Congress, high resolution. Go get them, go print them out, put them in your house. I also included this book. I stopped including it because it's so big and heavy, but it's like a comprehensive history of hip hop culture up until about 2010. Adams designed this. I can't think of the title right now. Musicality was all work about music. So right here we have Say Adams Violator artwork for the Violator album that came out in '99. And we have Sun Ra's poem from the Immeasurable Equation. That I'm calling him a graphic designer. Work by Sylvia Abernathy. This is a cool moment I like to talk about because it's like a past, present, future moment where we have work from Black designers in the 20th century. We have me who's working in the industry, and we have Howard University graphic design students. And Miriam Ahmed there, who's a professor of graphic design at Howard. And so this is just one of my favorite things that happened over the course of doing the first iteration of the show. And I have to update this list, but this is just kind of all the things that came out of the show. I did not know all of this was going to happen. I was on like 4 podcasts, and I got picked up, got a bunch of articles written about the show. I lectured a bunch. I've done workshops. We're going to do a workshop. And then I've exhibited the show, I think like 17 or 18 times now, and it'll be at Boston, at Boston University, in a month or so. And then I have just some documentation, so I'm just gonna flick through some photos. The cool thing about this show is that it became an educational tool, so I got to do workshops, and also I would send the files to a university or an institution, and they would get students to kind of design the exhibition. So, and I would tell them they could take the way that I organize the show and separate it into parties and protests or advertising and commerce, or if they want to organize by formal properties of the work, they could do that. And then the show looked different every single time. So the students clearly had a lot of fun this was at MCAD in Minneapolis. And this was a zine making workshop that we did. This was at ADO, which is now closed, in Brooklyn. And then we did a Rizzo workshop there. So people just took work from the show, collaged it. This person made a little calendar, which I thought was clever. And then they collaged it and photocopied on the Rizzo and made these cool posters. This was at City Tech, New York City College of Technology in Brooklyn. This was at VCU. There I am. There's Nazi and Nicole Killiard. I also had a live band play. I wanted music at the show, and I found a small band, and they played music through the opening, which I thought was cool. I actually ended up DJing at several of my openings as well. This is Nancy Mutiti's research as practice class at VCU actually started making an addendum to Philip Megg's A History of Graphic Design. He wrote the book at VCU, so they were kind of trying to include my work, my research, the artist in my show into his history, which he hasn't done yet. And then this is just a workshop in Baltimore, which is really nice. We did a version of the show called As Not For Indexed, and we kind of did repros of the work instead of my oversized posters of the work. We actually created everything to scale. And this is at a small arts library called the Menial Collection in Baltimore. They're really cool. And then in San Francisco, students at CCA decided to exhibit all 4 parts of the show at 4 different locations. So you had to go to all 4 locations to see the entire show. So this was at 2727 California Street in Berkeley. This is W.B. Du Bois in Oakland. at CCA Oakland campus, which I think is closed now. These were wheat pasted on Valencia Street in San Francisco in the Mission. And then this was at CCA main campus in San Francisco. So you had to go to all the places to do it. But again, like the show itself is cool, but the more exciting part for me is that it became an educational tool. It became an exhibition design tool, while people also learn about all these designers that they've never heard about. And again, workshops. And then this was this was a video just of the show in Seattle at the Jacob Lawrence Gallery. This is like right when all those old people got sick, got COVID-19, and I was out there, and this is before it like got bad. But this is one of the last shows. And again, like there was one graphic design student, Razia, who took on the charge of designing the exhibition and also did the graphic design for the show. So I sent her all the assets, and she just kind of ran with the like brand identity system and did an amazing job. The show was exhibited in 2 places. So part of the show was at University of Washington. The other part was at a studio called Civilization. And they printed it on glossy paper here, which was cool, and it was on matte at the other place. So it was like, it was nice. They also paired, they also had a little bit of a library, so they had the books that corresponded with the work in the show. So again, like it becomes this educational tool beyond just the posters themselves. This is just a video of students at UIC in Chicago, University of Illinois Chicago campus, kind of installing the show. And again, these were master's students, and they came up with an amazing, just did a great job putting together the show. It was, they came up with 4 different kind of structures to exhibit the different pieces of the show on, like the triangular stands there on the particle board were black data. The sandwich pieces were advertising and protest. Advertising and commerce. And then the protest, parties and protests were put on like kind of stands that look like protest signs. So it was like a nice mix. Oh yeah, and the music stuff was hung from the ceiling, right? So they came up with this whole system of exhibiting the show. They also did this really cool 3D painting of part of the poster, which I loved. It was amazing. This was in Cincinnati at 21C Museum Hotels, which is really cool. Funny story, I walked up to these people and I was there. They were looking at me weird because I was taking photos, and I was like, I curated the show, and they were just like, oh, they didn't care at all. This was at in Athens, Ohio, at Ohio University, not University of Ohio, but Ohio University. And then this was one of the most exciting moments. The show went to Belgium. So it was at a arts festival over there, and I got sick, and so I couldn't go in February. But they did it, and it was really cool because they had to do all of the didactics in English and French. So as you can see, you know, parts of the posters in both languages, which is amazing. In February of 2019, I interviewed Phase 2, and then shortly after he passed away. So I am honored to have been the last piece of press, the person to capture his voice, you know, before he passed away. And that interview's on AIGA Ion Design. And then cool things happened because I was beyond emailing with Phase 2 because he was a recluse. He didn't want to talk on the phone. He only wanted to talk on email. I got to get driven around San Francisco by Emory Douglas himself. He gave me and a couple of friends a tour of San Francisco, and then he brought us to his studio, which is just in his garage in his house, which was amazing. He's such a nice guy. He doesn't have a cell phone. He only uses his landline, And he was like, meet me here at 3:30. And I was there and he showed up. It was crazy. And then I also got to meet Say Adams, who's just the pioneer. He did all of your favorite Def Jam album artwork. And now he's tired of graphic design and just makes these really cool paintings. And that's it. um, and that's it. And that's the end of it. I have to say it's been an amazing journey, and I wish I could have had the show at the College of New Jersey, but COVID-19. And again, like the content of the show is less important than it having transformed into this educational tool. Like it's democratic. Anybody can take it. Anybody can exhibit the show. It's also not about me anymore, right? It's a thing that really extends way beyond me, the individual. And we're tired of design heroes. Let's just like make design better in general. All right, I'm done.
Great. Thank you so much for that, Jerome. That was incredible. So I think what we can do now is just open this up to questions, if that sounds good. So if the attendees want, you can use the chat. There is a Q&A feature as well, and you can put your questions in there, and I can read those aloud for everyone. So if you have any questions, please feel free to throw those into the chat. We have a question here. It says, as a graphic designer, what software do you use the most?
InDesign and After Effects. But I use, I use Photoshop for photos and Illustrator for vectors, but usually they go back into InDesign. And I do a lot of small motion work, for social media. So yeah. Why did I leave out Gail Anderson? I mean, I spoke to her about the show. I asked her if she wanted to be in it. I asked her to send me work. I didn't leave her out. I tried to include her. I'll leave it there. Other archives, the African. There is work there. It's connected to the Smithsonian, and you can search through the Smithsonian's website, and then you can find stuff there. It's just really hard to navigate. I also didn't include much work from them because for that reason. Yes, I am working on a book pitch right now. I do want to make a publication. I don't have time. I have to work a full-time job, and I have to see my therapist, and I have to cook and eat. So it's just I'm not privileged enough to do that alone. Do I have a favorite graphic designer in my Buddy Esquire? Phase 2 will be mad at me. They were like fake rivals, but Phase 2 said that they were friends, and they spent a lot of time just walking around New York critiquing graffiti because they were both writers, and they said that was more. Phase 2 said that was more important than making like they just made flyers because people needed to know about the parties. Any comments on Antoinette Carroll's feelings about AIGA? No. I don't like AIGA either, to be honest.
So there's also,
would you, sorry.
There's also a question in the Q&A that I saw pop up. It says, have you combined your love of dance and design at all?
I don't. I don't. If you look at 32 Counts, I would call that a graphic design project. Actually, I don't use words, but it's like it is image manipulation, and there is a set of constraints that I follow. It is kind of giving myself a design assignment, like a project, and I've just been doing it for about 4 years now. So it is an ongoing dance/design practice, but they don't overlap. Maybe in the thinking of graphic design, like there is when I choreograph a dance, I'm trying to pick the best move to match the sound in the music, if that makes sense. So I think when I'm doing graphic design, it's the same kind of thing. I'm like, okay, how do I want to compose this on a 4x6 versus an Instagram post versus an animation? And definitely in After Effects, I am choreographing. So it does happen, but I don't think about it. There's no like dance and design thing. Um, do you have any advice for application prep for MFA? I wouldn't get an MFA during a pandemic. Um, but I would just say don't show commercial work. Show work that shows your voice as a designer, your formal sensibilities, and like I would say just go extreme. Like go all the way out there. Don't show any safe work. Show unfinished work too. I think um, uh, panels are smart enough to see how you think as opposed to how the work looks. So yeah. Let me answer. Oh, Belinda asked me a question. Recommendation for students starting out on research. Read a lot. I think I did more reading than looking at images. I did not look. I looked at fewer pictures than books and articles. I read so many unnecessary scholarly articles that had an image in it with a caption, and then that caption led me somewhere else, right? So it's just like, or I would look at the sources, and then I would be like, oh, maybe I should read this, and then that source would lead me to something else. Read everything, even things that you feel like might tangentially be related. Um, could you expand a little more on how this turned from a research project to a full-blown traveling exhibition? Oh, you have the ideas? No, I was just going to make a book. Um, I did the exhibition because we had an opening in the gallery at MICA, and I was like, I could do this. This is easy. It was a very simple concept. I did the whole thing in like over a weekend. Like I designed the poster and designed all 47 pieces of work after I collected the archival imagery like in 2 days, and then printed them at MICA, printed and cut all 50 posters myself, um, and then hung them up, and that was the show. I got a press release put out, got some local press, and then somehow it blew up. I do. People ask me to bring the show to them because I think that uh, uh, I've exploited a void in graphic design history, which for me is a little obvious. It's like, duh, aren't you tired of learning about all these white people? But like, I don't know. And people say it's important work, but I don't. It's not important unless it really makes an impact. Like if I'm talking now, and then you guys forget about it next week, I failed, right? So you go do something. you know, Zachary, Megan, done. This is awesome. Support. What do I think the most important? Design is like unnecessary unless you're gonna sell stuff. I think design is a part of an ecosystem of community. So you need to like if I think about the party flyers in the 80s, people weren't coming to the parties. So Buddy Esquire was like, let me make some flyers. That's how the word was spread. Phase 2 in his interview said people would be calling him late at night, like, I need that flyer, like I need to go to the party, like, do you have any extra copies? So design in a bubble, just thinking design about design thinking about itself is just privileged and useless. It's just promoting elitism in a way. We get to sit around in front of our computers and make images. So if you're not doing it for a reason uh, besides just to be doing it, I feel like it's dumb. But I will say master the technical and conceptual skills and research skills, and then apply them to a community. It's communication at the end of the day. So what do you want to communicate? I feel like you should start there, as well as mastering the art of doing it. Are there any more questions? Oh, scroll down, Jerome. What advice do you have for Black graphic designers trying to find their first graphic design job? Anything to be aware of, watch out for? No, there will be white people giving you microaggressions. You can't do anything about just talk to your therapist, find some other Black people to complain about it with. You can't stop it. They're gonna do it. I don't even get it. It's just bullying at this point. Happens to me all the time. Um, I would just say, just if it depends on the kind of work you want to do. If you're gonna do commercial work, just show really slick clean, perfect work. You know, if you want to go work in the studio, they're a little more thoughtful. They'll be, you know, more interested in process. And if you want to work like me, I work in the nonprofit space and in arts and culture, and they're more concerned with the way that I think, you know, also a lot of nonprofit work is rapid fires. So they need somebody who can produce stuff really quickly and can ideate really quickly, you know, so it's like a different set of skills. I don't know if being Black is special. Like, you might actually have an advantage right now because all of the larger organizations are guilty and looking for diversity to check the diversity box. So you might get hired quicker now than any other time before. But yeah, what to watch out for? I would just say don't beat yourself up, right? Like, don't let white people troll you on the job. Just like don't understand that that's their insecurity to just bullying because of their own. I don't know. I don't even understand it at this point. But yeah, get a therapist when you get a job, especially if there's a lot of white people. Your website uses pink on yellow. Is there? No, it was just I used to design a lot of party flyers with pink and orange, and it was my favorite color combination on party flyers. It was also the magenta, pure magenta prints the brightest. It's like so you CMYK, pure C, pure Y, pure M, print the brightest, right? If you mix them, they don't print as brilliant. So I would just use the pure colors. So the pure, that's why. There's no other reason. In what ways would you suggest to balance your own creativity between your work that you're hard to create and even exhibition design? Oh, I don't know. I can talk about myself, Ren. I take on freelance work, and that's why I say selected freelance work, because some people know how to work with graphic designers. They give you a detailed creative brief. They give you references. They talk to you in the language you want to be talked to. And that's why I can't work with everybody, because some people send me my as not for poster and say, give us something like this. I'm like, I don't want to work with you. You know, so that's my creative part, because I get to generate the work with people who understand the way that I think, if that makes sense. They're not worried about the way the work looks. Work that I do at work, as you can see, a lot of that is not on my website, because it's a lot of just like stuff to get the job done, to post on social media, or to that'll go up at events and things like this. It's functional, and it's not stuff that I have no ego about it. I have a lot of ego about my freelance work though. Like, I like that stuff and I care about it a lot. And then the exhibition design, it's so funny because this is my first time ever curating, and I feel like sometimes I feel like an imposter when I call myself a curator, but I have done the thing, you know. So there's no balance. Like, I would like to move past this show and maybe give curation another shot in a different realm, but I don't know. I think I answered all the questions. Are there any more?
There's one more.
Let's see. No, there aren't any more. No?
I see one. So it says, how do you separate your personal artwork from your professional work as an artist? Also, do you have any tips for young illustrators looking to build connections and get freelance work?
I don't even know if I have personal work anymore. Everything is for money. I have bills to pay, to be honest. That's why I moved to Richmond, so I can like save more money and maybe buy a house one day. No, I don't really have much personal work. All of my work is professional at this point. There's just some that allows for me to flex my conceptual skills more, and then work that is just functional, like the work that I do at work. You know, the work that I do at my 9 to 5 with Civic Nation. Tips for young illustrators. DM all your favorite artists on Instagram. Like, just DM them, just cold out. Just, what's up? Hey, I really like your work. just if they ignore you, too bad. But like a lot of people are willing to talk. I would just say just casually reach out to people you admire and want to talk to, and just a lot of people are kind and will shoot you a few lines or maybe refer you to somebody else. But I would say that's one part. I would also say talk to your professors, like Jason. Like we know, I was a teacher. I would definitely refer people to other people all the time, and hope that works out. And also, if people vibe with your work, then they'll bring you on for a project, or give you resources to get jobs. You just got to talk to people. Like, don't be shy, don't be bashful. Let's see.
So I think that's all the questions that I saw in the chat. Jerome, I have a question for you. The research that you put into As Not For is really important, just because so much of that had been missing from the canon. I'm wondering what effect it had on you, both personally and professionally as a designer. Did it inform the work that you were making for clients, the work that you get paid to do in any way, even the way that you approach it, and also in terms of just your own identity, how it might have impacted you?
It was really funny. I was speaking with one of my old professors recently, and about my desires as like I really like video games. I have like Genshin Impact on pause right now on my TV. Like, and I'm really interested in video game typographies, like referencing fantasy and all these cool things, and or like futuristic type. I'm really into all that. Like, I want to like just look more into that. And my professor, as I was telling this to him, he was like, "So you're actually the four right now, Jerome, because you're being this mascot for racial justice in design, but that's not really what your as is actually doing like researching video game typography." And that's so true, because I've now become like this mascot for Black design history, which I don't feel like I'm putting on a show right now, but I'm less interested in talking about this than I am video games, actually. And even the content of the show is less important to me, because I'm fulfilled, right? Like, I did the research, I feel validated in the history of design, I achieved the goal, which was that. And then all of this stuff is extra. So it's cool that it gets to benefit everybody else. But personally, I don't want to be a mascot anymore. This happens so often in history. There's always the Black person speaking for Black people. Like, white people, you guys do it. Like, what can white people do it? Fuck. Just like, and it's also like taxing. It's emotionally taxing. I'm dealing with microaggressions and racism and fear of death every day, and then I gotta like explain Black shit to everybody else. I'm tired. So yeah, that's it makes me frustrated, Jason. On my formally, no, a lot of the work I don't necessarily like. I should say I like some of the work, like the Art Sims Malcolm X poster is everything. It's amazing. I wrote a piece on the Cooper Hewitt Object of the Day blog about it. It's one of my favorite pieces of graphic design. Also, all of the Buddy Esquire and Phase 2 flyers are amazing. It's just because of they were super economic. They had like 2-3 tools. They cut out, Polaroids, drew the framing, and used rub-on letters. You know what I mean? They had like 3-4 tools, right? And made these, made all these different iterations of these flyers. But like the commercial work, I don't really care. Like the Marlboro Man, whatever. Like, it's more about the person who made it. But yeah, I look at, as I was explaining, I look at more fine art for graphic design and formal and what's the word? Inspiration, not influence. I look for formal inspiration in fine art more. I don't look at other graphic design to be inspired about graphic design. Yeah. There was another question. Will you come back and talk to us? If I ever have time to do the research, yes, I will.
So Josh Sender also asked, could there be a future where you make a game?
Josh, hi Josh. uh, no, I'm not making any video games. Sorry, Josh. I just like to play them. Go play
Uh,
Genshin Impact. It's so much fun.
well, Jerome, I want to thank you so much for coming and speaking with us about your research, about your work, for your frankness. I appreciate it. It's refreshing, and yeah, I think thank you from all of us. I'm looking forward to the workshop with the students later, and to everyone else. I think we'll end this here. Thank you all for the questions and for listening and watching. It's been wonderful, and I appreciate everyone who attended today. Thank you all.
Jerome, thank you so much. And I just want to ask, I used to live in Richmond. Have you been to Cuba Cuba yet?
I'm sorry?
I used to live in Richmond. Have you been to Cuba Cuba yet? The Cuban restaurant?
Mm-mm.
Oh my gosh, you gotta
Let
go.
me, I'll write it down.
Yeah, it's great. It's like one of my favorite restaurants from, and it might not be there. It's like a while ago I lived there, but it's wonderful. Richmond's a wonderful, wonderful city, and there's some really interesting stuff happening right now with visual culture and the Black Lives Matter movement and Monument Avenue. So it's a good time to be down there.
Yeah, Monument Avenue is amazing. I like drive down there and just like they've made the Robert E. Lee, the Christopher Columbus statue like just a public park now. So there's basketball courts out there. People just like grill, just hang out over there, and this whole graffiti covered monument. It's like one of the best. I think that's the best piece of art I've ever seen in my life. Just like collective uh emotion, and then like whatever. It's amazing.
Yeah, it's awesome. I'm so glad that that happened. That avenue always bothered me, so it's great to see it be
Yeah.
dismantled.
Hmm.
Great city. I hope you enjoy it. And thank you
I
so
do.
much.
I like it.
Oh, yeah. Thank you so much
Hmm.
for coming today. I really appreciate it. It's
Hmm.
just been great.
So for my students who are doing the workshop, so I think we can stop the recording. Margaret, I'll go ahead and let you do that actually. But for my students, why don't we take a 15-minute break? Jerome, why don't we take 15 minutes?
Hmm.
And you should have the link, I think, for the workshop. It'll be a separate Zoom link.
Okay.
And why don't we just all hop onto that, into that Zoom meeting at 3:15 then? Take like a couple
Okay.
minutes just to, all right. All right, see you then.
All right. Cool.
Thank you so
All right.
much. Bye-bye. Jason, thank you so much. You did great. It was awesome.
Thank you.